Hi, welcome to Mercurius Being. I am Amy Jensen and I am here with your astro update for the December 21st solstice and the December 23rd Capricorn new moon. Along with these two events, we have on the 21st Mercury's maximum evening elongation, so it's as far away from the sun as it gets before it begins its retrograde period. So it's kind of away from the sun and then it'll begin its retrograde period. It won't go retrograde, but this heralds the beginning of the whole event. So Mercury retrograde is going to be in Capricorn this year, or it is the beginning of the earth element for this year, and the first earth sign it is hitting is Capricorn, so I'm sure I'll be back with more on that. But basically, just mentioning that because it is an action-packed couple days. So let's start with the chart, see if I can do this better at this video. So the chart for this solstice, as you can see, the moon will still be in Sagittarius, and sun in Capricorn, Venus, Mercury, Pluto in Capricorn. So you can see that wide expanse that they hold. Jupiter is at 0 degrees Aries, so tight square to the sun. And then the trail end of the bowl shape is Mars in retrograde, Mars in Gemini retrograde. So we have the moon through Mars for this lunation. So just noticing again, so we have the sun at 0 degrees, Pluto at 27 degrees, but again, just this whole expanse of planets. Okay, then at the new moon of Capricorn on the 23rd, I just want you to notice how they've all come together. So the moon, sun obviously conjoined for the new moon, Venus, Mercury, Pluto, all in Capricorn. So you might look in your chart to see where 1 degree to 27 degree Capricorn is in your chart. And that is what we call a stellium, a group of planets in one sign. So that's just a lot of energy. I think last time I mentioned, and we still have 3 planets out of bounds at both of these events, but last video I mentioned about the planets being out of bounds and being a little stronger. Well, we've still got that going on, but then with the stellium, we've got, instead of a house party, I would say that this energy is akin to like a forceful wedge is what comes to mind. Like going forward, like it's not going to stop. Like it's just boom, the moon, the sun, the Venus, Mercury, and ending with Pluto. Okay, so there's just a super solidified presence of Capricorn going on at this new moon. And from, new moon to full moon, each of those lunations could just involve the sun and the moon. So, at times then other planets join in the energy. So there's just a lot of Capricorn energy coming in at this time of the beginning of Capricorn season. So I also got this little image of, the aspects. So everything is squaring, the sun and the moon are squaring Jupiter in the new moon, and just the sun is squaring Jupiter at the solstice. Uranus, I'll get back to all of these. Uranus has a square and a half, a sesquiquadrate to the sun and the moon at the new moon. And to me, this brings in, and then at the solstice, Uranus is only sesquiquadrating, square and a halving the sun. So Uranus is the breaker up of structures, I've been saying this for a few weeks, calling this wild card Christmas. And it just kind of popped into my head, and I kind of thought it was a personal message, but then I'm like, oh yeah, Uranus is aspecting these two events. So with Uranus, there's going to be some wild card happenings. As Kriyananda always says, expect the unexpected, or always said. And then, of course, as you all know, when you expect the unexpected, usually nothing happens. But just being really open, not too set, which is interesting with the structural energy of Capricorn. Also, so Jupiter, 0 degrees Aries, ruled by Mars retrograde in Gemini, Gemini ruled by Mercury, which is in Capricorn, also strong because of that max elongation position. Jupiter is kind of fueling, so we've got all this Capricorn foundational energy, but Jupiter squaring that in Aries, the energy of individuation and assertiveness, and ruled by Mars, ruling your agency, and Mars in Gemini ruling your communication. There's really a push for changing up your structures, is a way I'm going to put it. Not only does Jupiter have this kind of like push with it, and heat with Aries, and combustibility, we're still kind of finishing up the remnants of the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces of this year. And interestingly, for both events, Neptune is in 22 degrees Pisces, and I just thought, and actually for the solstice, it's 22 degrees 44 minutes, so I like that double aspect at the end of the year of 2022. Okay, so these are kind of the playing field, the players in the field, and I'm also going to loop in Saturn, which doesn't aspect anything on the new moon chart, but does have a couple of creative aspects to the sun and the moon on the solstice. So it has a quintile and a septile, which are both minor aspects, but they're dialed in. I've got them at 0 degrees and change, right? So super tight. The quintile is a creative aspect, so Saturn with the moon, creative, inspiration, so imagining new structures. So Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. It's in the sign of Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, which is tapping in with some wild card energy. And then Saturn in Aquarius is bringing this message to the moon of, I don't know, I probably mentioned this before. Uranus, Aquarius energy, when I think of it foundationally, I think of it as like space age Legos. So Legos that are obviously clear or holographic, right? But also could be melded and formed with probably your thoughts and your mind. Thoughts, mind, intention. But knowing that they can shape and unshape, structure and restructure. So even with all of this Capricorn energy, again, none of these signs are meant to be prisons, right? It's like, oh, Capricorn's foundational. It rules the bones, it rules the skin, it's hard work, all of that. It delays, it's discipline and determination. Yes, it is all of those things. But it's only asking you to slow down and do it right at its best. Okay, we'll get into shadow Capricorn as well. So Saturn is kind of kissing the moon with some imagination. It's also having a little serendipitous aspect to the sun, giving it that invitation again to know that the inspiration to change, innovate, restructure will come to you at the right time, and also that you have it within you at the right time, right place, right time. And again, these are generalized energies. You know, in your chart, Saturn or the Sun may be having a different experience, but these are kind of the overarching energies of this time period. So if you would like to, you know, attune to Saturn and the Sun and that serendipity, or just be inspired by those possibilities. Again, so Saturn ruling limitation and constriction. However, you know, again, without bones and skin, we'd just be a pile of mush. So limits are good. Delays are good. I'm going to segue a little bit into kind of what I was going to be talking about being your own authority. So all of these things are good structure, and Saturn is easier as you get older. I can attest to that. We learn to work within, well, not always, and not everyone, within the confines of time and space, because that's what this material world is, right? It's the cross of matter. But so the cross of matter, and this is a little tangent, but you know, if you think about Christianity, and there are some people who focus on the cross of suffering for Christ, and then others focus on kind of the yogic Christ, the love Christ, the you know, just love your neighbor as yourself. Just, you know, the greatest thing is love. So it really depends on what your focus is as well in materiality and in this world. So not kind of hanging ourselves on the cross of matter and just seeing the suffering and the work that there is to be done, but acknowledging that, but also the freedom that comes from having structures. As you know, within your own life, or if you have children, wild card is not great when you have little kids. Like, you're creating a structure, a container for them to grow and develop within that structure. You know, enough sleep, enough rest, good food. You know, this goes for all of us. And that structural setup, you know, again, that goes back to kind of the Virgo self-care of the last video. But that does provide you with healthy, holistic embodiment. Okay, so from that Virgo, healthy, holistic embodiment, you can go up to the natural ruler of the top of the chart, which is Capricorn. And from that point, achieve what it is you want to achieve. So the axis for the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, is, and this is Noel Till, and I'm probably going to get this right because I haven't listened to him for a long time, but I think it's the individuation axis, or axis of individuation. So Aries, you come in, I'm here, I'm into the world. You know, Cancer, excuse me, okay, am I here? Excuse me, Cancer, interlinked parent, could be the mother, could be the father, the tribe, the family. So it's kind of you as the Aries, individual coming in, and then you square the family. Like, okay, I'm in it, but how do I balance that? Keep yourself in boundaries within your family. And then you move up to Libra and you balance yourself against the other, whether it's a partner, group of people, but there's just a balancing self, other, self, other. And then in Capricorn, we have the individual reaching the top, but also squaring the outer linked parent, the authority, could be the father. Wow, every time outer linked, inner linked is kind of getting my throat for some reason. So it's really you, I'm gonna cut to the chase, you becoming your own authority. The authority is there, the cross of matter is there, and we live within that. We play by the rules, and we bump up against the rules and we test the rules. And that's part of the growth process. You know, if we all just roboted it, up until we got old enough and now I'm an authority. It's like, no, you bump against those limits and you get pushback from authorities, but you also learn that relationship. And I think where I'm going, and I'm not using any of my notes, but I had this, okay. So the Capricorn energy is foundational, and so I knew I had written notes. Loving and gentle. How about this? How about we reframe the old Saturnian Capricornian figure of the stern? For some reason, I always think of English or math teachers, even though I've had lovely, wonderful English and math teachers. And I would say they really held the energy of learning to cross the T's and dot the I's firmly and lovingly, okay? That, my dears, is the ideal authority figure, right? It's like, hey, these are the rules. This is the guidance. I'm gonna offer you my wisdom and my experience and my advice as the tribal leader, right? As the collective leader, as the leader of your country. From my vast wealth of experience. But many times, this authority figure takes the face of, and I'm going to see if I wrote any of this down. Takes the face of kind of a diminishing energy. Okay. A shameful energy. A lot of times in people's charts, when I see like a Saturn square moon, Saturn opposed moon, or Mercury, Saturn opposed or square Mercury, it's definitely got this vibe of like, hey, early childhood school was not great for those people. They were told they couldn't learn well, or they had problems with learning, just because, you know, really it speaks more to the teacher's limitation. Not being able to teach a student who might learn differently or think differently, right? So that's where that authority figure or the structure is not helpful. Okay, so always finding a way to restructure structure. What I had written down, I guess, was really, and I need to go back to Pluto too, but I'm going to keep going with this. So right use of authority and being your own authority, and right use of power, which again, and I'll put the Adam Gainsburg link at the bottom of my information, this whole Mars starting out in Scorpio cycle began October of 2021. We're just seeing this played out, and I think, so becoming your own authority, having your own agency, calling out power structures, etc. And I'm tying that in a bit, which is somewhere also in my notes, and I hope I get to it, with the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces, the energy of that. So what I was going to say with poor use of power is, it popped into my head and I just fell in love with the term, but anyway, I call it the old guru switch and bait. Bait and switch, there we go. The old guru bait and switch. So the idea of offering wisdom and knowledge and the possibility and a path to enlightenment. But once you enter that relationship, you find out that they're always moving the goalposts. And just like the religions where the answer is in the book, and then the book's closed, and this is the book, and this is the path, and this is the GPS. It's always in the book, but it's always outside of yourself, right? The book should be just a guide. It should be, again, like that super awesome authority figure that let's all attune to and maybe bring into reality of, again, hey, I did this. This is what worked for me. You are going to have a few differences. Your legs are longer on the path. Your legs are shorter on the path. Your feet hurt. You've got great stamina. Great ability, or you might be needing a different path entirely. Because anyway, just ability level and ability wise, and so there should be guidance on your journey. But that trust and faith whether it's in the book type of spiritual path or the guru type spiritual path, it's still outside of yourself. It's always outside of yourself. And I'm not diminishing either of these paths, by the way, because they are very helpful for many people. But I think each of the paths need to have a point where the spiritual leader says, okay, you're good, right? Well, you're good to begin with. First of all, you're good to begin with, right? You don't need me at all. Number two, okay, yeah, you've learned from me for a while. We've talked. I've shared what I know. I've shared you the path. I think, you know, I've laid it out as best I can. You've learned what you can from me. You know, travel on, my friend, and become your own authority. But they don't say that because they still need you. And they still need that relationship from you, whether it's monetary or energetic. So you're never quite ready. There's still more to do. There's some more meditation to do. There's more rotations to do, or more penance, or more tithing. And that's where I bring in the Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces. I'm going to say it anyway. All right, the energies, and I'm going to mention a few things from the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces back in 1856 was the last time they conjuncted in Pisces. So Wagner completed his famed score for the Valkyries. Charles Dodson formally changed his name to Lewis Carroll while also taking up photography that same day. And of course, the problematic nature of Lewis Carroll, and then the use of Alice in Wonderland and Down the Rabbit Hole and Through the Looking Glass that plays out in many things. L. Frank Baum was born that year, the Wizard of Oz author, also used, unfortunately, for many things. Nikola Tesla, Sigmund Freud. The camera was patented. Interestingly, it was the end of the Crimean War, and of course, what do we have this year? A war in that same area of the world. The Mormons left Iowa City and headed west to Salt Lake City. The Great Bell is cast for Big Ben, and I think just recently didn't Big Ben start chiming again, because I know it was under getting refurbished. It was the Second Opium War, which is very Neptunian, anything to do with drugs and, you know, anything that would get kind of faded and oceanic washing over you. Okay, the current cycle, possibilities, I'll just list through that. Could be a new cycle of philosophical, motivational, and spiritual development, or period where misplaced idealism proliferates. And I'll write the sources for these two. Conspiracy theories, secrets coming out into the open, almost said ocean, open, government, motion and music, motion picture, music industries, and manipulation. Influenza, which Louise Hay would say is a response to mass negativity and beliefs, fear, belief in statistics. The affirmation would be, I am beyond group beliefs or the calendar. I am free from all congestion and influence. Influence and influenza. Never caught that one before. Increased vulnerability to suggestion or inflated deception. Rose-colored glasses, see what we want, and we are told what we want to hear. But it's a great time for creative and spiritual endeavors, more world travel and expansion of spiritual horizons, opening up to the collective unconscious and a thinning of the veil, open to subtle ideas, concepts, creative impulses, more escapism through spirituality, drugs, alcohol. Water may be more of an issue, especially oceans. And yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. There's been a ton of drought in our country. Anyway, opening up to the collective imagination, shake up to the collective and cultural imagination, reveals the possibilities and thresholds of our own dreams. Something new is being born or catalyzed, but can also be corrupted. It is a time of experimentation, collaboration, and community. And then we can see more clearly what psychic stuff is being triggered in you or where you are deluded. And by you, I mean me, one. One is deluded. And then this is probably the most important part of it to me, as relevant to this whole guru bait and switch. Collective opportunity to heal victim/perpetrator energy in regards to psychic, spiritual, or spiritual, I'm having trouble talking, or chemical manipulation. So a collective opportunity to heal victim/perpetrator energy in regards to psychic, spiritual, or chemical manipulation. So that would be the biggest point that goes back to this foundational energy of Capricorn. And as I said, or maybe I didn't say yet, about all of the documentaries that are out and have been out for the last few years. Now, whether that's a plant as well, but you know, you have to filter all of this through, but you watch any of those and you see the manipulation of huge groups of people. And, you know, from an outsider perspective, you're like, how can that happen? It's so crazy, so unreasonable. But they take, again, and I know I did talk about this in another video, that faith and trust that is inherent in people, and it is used against them. Okay, but again, a lot of this stuff is coming out into the open, and it comes down to, again, you becoming your own authority and restoring faith and trust in your ability to do that. So yes, there is always something to perfect. We're human and we are always evolving, right? But it doesn't mean we're bad where we're at. We're still perfecting, that whole Virgo thing. But it's an idea of letting go. So that would be that Pisces energy, of that perfectionism, because you're good enough already, right? You know, Pisces is, oh my God, you know, oh my God, you're God. God loves you just how you are. There's nothing more you have to do. And anything you're doing and fine-tuning as we go through the path of the year, and we're coming to the new year, which is the solstice, is a process of just polishing and growing and grounding yourself in your direct knowledge. Would be more of a Piscean thing, right? Experience and your own knowing, becoming your own authority. So yes, you know, do consult, do have teachers, do have the book, do have the path that you travel with others, and continue to learn and grow and perfect and polish. Remain humble in the process, because that's always a big one. They're going to throw that one out at you. Be humble. Oh, your ego, okay? But don't mistake servitude for humility, because again, that's looping you back into that manipulative system and cycle and that victim-perpetrator energy. Remaining humble is acknowledging that there is always more to learn and that there are always many people with much more experience and knowledge, and many realms of knowledge to explore. But if you don't set out on your own journey, and it's not an adjunct journey, you will never claim your own ring of knowledge. And I'll bring some tarot cards in, which I thought of as the world. You will not have established your own goalposts, that you can move when you want to, when you feel that you've crossed the line, when you've crossed that finish line, when you've broken your own ribbon, the ribbon that you've established as a measure of your success. Okay? So, in wrapping this up, I wanted to go back to Pluto with, so I talked about the Uranus wild card, also Chiron. Chiron, more so in the solstice chart, is active and has this opportunity. So I say more active in the solstice, but that'll carry on. But opening up the energy of healing as a nice trine to the moon. It has a square to Venus. So in Capricorn, so like ding ding, your self-worth is probably like, gets a little chink, right? And then it has a sextile to Mars in Gemini, and Chiron is in Aries, ruled by Mars. So there's something about, again, your agency and the power of your own voice coming through, an opportunity to heal this. And these things coming forward, as I said, at this very foundational time of the year, because the solstice is like a new moon of the year in the northern hemisphere. So in the southern hemisphere, they're looking at the full moon of the year, and I just was putting my head around that this morning. So that's an interesting thing, the different signs. So just a point to ponder. But here in the northern hemisphere, the sun is at the lowest and the least amount of light, not unlike a new moon, and then it stays still for 3 days. Apparently, it looks as though. And solstice comes from sol, the sun, and stis, or sistati, which is Latin. I don't know why I did it in that accent, stopped or stationary. So it feels though the sun has literally stood still. And so anything that involves being still, coming within, and preparing, like putting something new on your altar, right? Cleaning your room, cleaning your house, preparing for this new influx of energy that you want to start the new year out. So the calendar new year, obviously January 1st, but this is really the new year, astrologically. In my opinion, in my spiritual practice opinion, different than the Aries ingress. That's a whole different thing, but this to me is the darkest, quietest portion of the year, symbolizing that new moon. Okay, Pluto, at the end of that Capricorn stellium, has a square and a half to Mars at the solstice and at the Capricorn new moon. So I got this image of a spirograph, and like the point where you put the lead, and then you trail it around and you make this geometric shape, and it's kind of like the Pluto is like at this fulcrum at 27 degrees. So the sun and the moon vary a little bit. The moon especially was in Sagittarius coming into Capricorn, and then at the tail end of this is Mars, and so it's just kind of this odd geometry, and I kind of got this image like a shell or a nautilus. But Pluto's all about power, and it's in the foundational sign of Capricorn. And again, Mars is all about agency, and it's in the sign of Gemini. And again, it's retrograde, and it's staying in that sign. So really, again, going back to power, how you use power, how power is used. Okay, and then this is where my notes were about the cult documentaries and what a great year to do this in because of that. So I guess that's what I'll kind of come back to. Personal power, collective power, but restructuring your own systems in stillness and in meditation. And in confidence of your own voice, with confidence, but in confidence. I kind of like that. So allow yourself to go within. Find that still point. So in the microcosm of the body, the sun is transiting at the root chakra in Capricorn and in Aquarius as well. So the sun microcosmically is transiting in your root chakra. So again, ground yourself foundationally. now you can really see the difference between this and the last video. Really the whole holiday of Christmas, the gift giving and the celebrations, all of that really is much more Sagittarian in energy, and the figure of Santa Claus being much more Jupiterian. You know, the fat, jolly fellow, you know, benevolent, giving gifts to everyone and spreading good cheer. And obviously not that Capricorn is devoid of that. You know, I have Capricorns in my life. They're awesome people. I love them dearly. So it's not that at all, but the energy of Capricorn is that foundational building energy. Again, the guide, the wise elder energy that we can seek outside of ourselves for guidance, but ultimately, no matter what age you are, finding that wise elder within yourself and listening and listening. And Saturn also rules hearing along with Mercury, because it rules all the bones, even the little tiny ones in the ears. So I think I'm going to leave it with that. I'm going to kind of stop on this quiet note, and I hope that your solstice and your Capricorn new moon are filled with this beginning light of the year. And I hope you can symbolically light a new candle on the altar within yourself and just feel that glow and how special your own flame is. And that is the flame that we need to light, and have everyone else in the world light that flame for themselves. All right, thank you so much.